Hello. This is the Tiptop Audio Trigger Riot. The Trigger Riot is a gate sequencer for Eurorack synthesizers. Primarily used for sequencing drums, there's absolutely nothing to stop you using this to advance sequences, to fire off envelopes, to clock LFOs or other gear that you may have. Trigger Riot has an extremely unusual principle at its heart. What it is most certainly not is your trad linear 808 step sequencer, but there's absolutely nothing to stop you sequencing 808s very beautifully. Let me show you how it works. To the left here I have a bunch of the Tiptop 808 drum modules, which are analog recreations of the voices of the Roland TR-808, namely the BD-808 bass drum, SD-808 snare drum, and the Hats 808, which actually comprises an open hi-hat and a closed hi-hat in one module. The gate inputs for those are being driven by the Trigger Riot here. So this is the bass drum, this is the snare, and this is the open hi-hat, and this is the closed hi-hat, and this one went to market. Down here, though, I have something else. We'll come to that later. The working principle of the Trigger Riot is that it's comprised of rows of clock dividers, which are added up, and then the summed output is outputted from these jacks here. So we have a row here, a row here, a row here, and a row here. These are all summed to these outputs. And then we have vertical rows here, 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 and here, and these are summed to these outputs. Rather nicely, we have mutes for these rows, which we can turn on and off. But let me show you how it works. So if I come up here into this knob 1 and turn this to the right, you'll hear the BD-808 firing. And what it's doing, did you see that it was set to 0 and now it's set to 1? So it's basically firing off every beat, every 1. If I do this, it'll fire every 2, every 3 beats, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this goes all the way up to 255. The clock speed is set here, and this is just BPM, so I've got it set to 120 BPM. It can be synced to other gear, of course. Let's just leave it like that for now. So if I come back down to here and set it to 4 beat. Very traditional. So I have my snare coming out of here. If I come down to this one, 2, 3, 4, snare plays along. Oh. So I set the snare to 8 with this, I set the BD to 4 with this, and we get a very trad beat. Do you see that this is lighting up as well? And that's because we're currently in matrix mode. And what happens is that the knobs get summed in every direction. So this is getting outputted here, that is getting outputted there, all separate, but they're actually getting blended into this output, which is interesting. So we kind of get an extra row for free. There's actually another mode, which is independent mode. And in independent mode, we can have completely separate outputs coming from these. So I'll show you that very briefly, just so that we have covered it clear. So if I then do this, nothing happens. But if I hold this and do that, then we get what happens in the matrix mode, except that it truly is only coming out of here. And if I want to have a different pattern coming out of there, do you see that we have completely independent patterns coming out? Very cool. Back to matrix mode. So where were we? Okay, let's start again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But what if we start turning these? Oh. So, as I've got this set to 4 and I've now got this set to 6, now 7, it's adding these divisions together and summing the output here. If I set this to 4, there's no change because these are set to the same division, they overlap. But as I find different numbers, there's an interesting interaction as these all get summed together and spat out. And you can see that these are starting to light up as these are getting gates applied to them. perhaps some hi-hats. Ooh. What's interesting here is that these are emerging separately, but because I'm using Hats 808, it has choking built in, so it chokes the open hi-hat when the closed hi-hat plays, which leads to fun little interactions as they play off of each other. So this is kind of a weird principle. It's completely different to the 808. We're not actually sort of programming in every hit. We're not choosing what the hits are. We're programming these clock dividers, and we're enjoying the sort of emergent combinations, the kind of new patterns that emerge as we add them all up together. And we can mute them. I'll shorten that. And as I mentioned, there's nothing at all to stop us from advancing other things. So, where did that cable go? Here it is. And this cable is going to a couple of things. It's actually going off to fire off the gate of an IntelliGel Atlantis synthesizer voice. It's also advancing a random looping generator, which is the Turing machine from a music thing. And that is being quantized by the IntelliGel microscale. And it's all being reverbed by the make noise verb. And if I stick this in, the summed output here is advancing the sequence. Cool. Super cool. Yeah. Speed it all up. Oh man. I hope you get how cool this is, because it's a really weird way of programming drums and it's totally unnatural, but it's unbelievably fun. Division is not the only thing that we can do here. There's a ton of other cool things to explore, so let me quickly show you one of those. That one is probability, which is bonkers. So all those divisions that we made correspond to these knobs, and each knob has a probability setting. So that is literally the probability that that division will occur, and it's got a 0 to 100%. So as I turn down this knob, you'll see that this is decreasing, and accordingly you'll see that this stops outputting so regularly. There's now a 70% chance that that division will occur, 60%. And as I reduce them, this kind of element of chance starts to appear. So imagine having a whole series of divisions applied all with different probabilities. I mean, what happens is that there is a kind of infinite emergent thing that happens where it starts to randomly occur, or the interactions start to randomly occur, and a rhythm kind of changes over time. And as you listen, you'll hear that it'll just change. This is where it gets really bonkers, because I think it's best summed up by saying that it becomes like having a collaborator, and I'm really not sure, why quite it's doing what it's doing, because there's a chance element built in, but it's really fun to play with because it's just very inspiring. I wouldn't have written this, but I can record it, chop it up, use it to trigger other stuff. Super ace. Let me show you another thing, which is the pulse width control, which has a hugely important influence on the rhythms. It means that you don't just end up with a string of 16ths coming out. You get really interesting interactions. I'll show you this by going into this hi-hat row. So if I just turn this to 1, we get a pattern all on the beat. Beat, 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 beat. But then if I have a another division going along here, do you see how on the 4th, it kind of holds for half a sec? If I come in here and change the pulse width control of that 4th one, you'll see that it holds it for even longer. So you get this kind of interesting broken pattern, because that's pulse width control is literally the length of the gate. It's almost easier if I mute this, and then show you here. Gate coming out, and then as I adjust the pulse width, come back. You can hear that it's lengthening the gate. This is awesome for triggering off synths and getting longer notes, but it's also awesome because it causes this kind of long pattern. What we're not having is just an endless stream. There's actually a little hold, there's an interaction as this fires. So you get really interesting things going on. And if I then go to the speed control, which is time base, I can speed up this accordingly. You see, it goes right up to 64ths, and I can slow it down and get kind of triplets and cool things going on. If I turn this off, we get an interesting time base thing going on. So we have the ability to have different time bases going on per division, and we have the ability to lengthen the gate, which causes them to sort of overwrite each other in interesting ways. So you see, we can get these kind of slightly wonky rhythms going on. And actually to that end, there's even more that we can do. Let me clear just this row. If I hold the reset clear and just hold this together, it actually just clears that without resetting the whole pattern. So if I create a new division and go to time shift, you can hear this getting slipped. So we can push that division along and kind of make it wonky. All good. The other thing that we can do is clock shifting, which is just on the beat shifting the whole thing along. So you can hear that's on the beat, and if I do clock shift, it'll shift it a beat along. So we can shift these elements in relationship to one another. Put them back, shift them. And because the hi-hats choke each other, then you get an interesting relationship as you move them around. And back, that's cool. We do have memories, by the way, and these are arranged into banks and patterns. If I go bank 1, pattern 1, and I hit play, bank 1, pattern 1, pattern 2, bank 3, pattern 1. And then if we switch modes, now in matrix mode, we have a completely different set of memories. So independent mode has its own memories, and matrix mode have its own memories as well. Nice touch. There's more to the Trigger Riot, but I hope that gives you a sense of its intrinsic functionality and a feel for the sort of emergent power that it has. And to finish up, let's just play around and see what we can do. probability. So we'll have a 40% probability that this will occur, and then let's add in a sped up extra division. Come down here and change the time base for this one. Go back to divide, and then change the probability of that. Yeah, adjust the bass drum. Change the probability of this division. Increase the decay. Peace.